Okay, preparing to live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to G.S.T's new podcast, which is Be Fearless. And today I've got with me for a wonderful chat is Justin and Maria. Good morning, Justin and Maria.
Hi.
Good morning.
It's actually night time
morning
over here in
here.
Australia.
Exactly. And I should say good morning to everybody out there, wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning, evening, afternoon. And thank you so much for joining us here today on our live. I am really looking forward to chatting to you, lovely people, all about being fearless and fear and what it can do to us and how we can start to get some control over the things that we fear, and maybe even be happy with feeling the fear and working with it. So I wanted to ask you your first question. So when you're ready, is that okay?
Yeah, we're
Wonderful.
ready. Go
Yep.
for it.
I'd love, before I do, for you to just tell the audience very quickly about a little bit about what you do and how you help people.
Sure. Do you want to?
You take it away.
Okay. Where do we start? Let's start at the train wreck, I suppose, where our marriage nearly ended in divorce because of fear. So, yeah, it's a very long story, but our relationship came to a point where we had to look at each other and face the fact that things weren't working, they were dysfunctional, and where are we going to go from here? So we faced a lot of fear in that. That was an incredibly painful time in our life. It just still makes me quite emotional now. But through facing what we've faced, we've become so much stronger, and together we know what we're doing now. We have purpose. We've got 2 little kids where we know what we're doing on the planet, and it's our mission now to help people discover themselves. And we all have flaws, we all have imperfections, and these all show up as fears, and we all need help to get through them, and we do that with each other. It's actually, you can't actually do it on your own. You need other people to do it, because going back to the very start, when we're little children, we don't know who we are, and we need parents and other people in our lives to help us regulate our emotions, to understand who we are, and a lot of us didn't get that. So we need to face those fears in relationships. So for us, relationships and intimacy has been our biggest fear. So we've managed to correct that, and we want to help others.
So we started a coaching company, and that's where we're working at the moment. And we began it together, and we're actually now, we're still under the same company, but we've decided to split our skill sets. So Justin's looking at working with men and relationship and codependency issues going forward, and I'm working with women. And I guess we've just gone to our strengths, and I'm going to be working with some mindset, and it's the same form of coaching, but we're just coming from different angles, because we all feel quite differently, and the feminine energy and the masculine energy is quite different. So, but that's, in that way, we want to be able to help others through a journey that's you know, we're all human, and we're all here, and we've all got wounds, and they tend to play out, as Justin said, in relationships. So we need to heal them in relationship, and we needed guidance. It was a very tough road, so we'd love to be the guide for others.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think when just about every issue in your life comes back to relationship. You may think it's significance at work or whatever, but really the significance you want is that you don't feel, it's the relationship with yourself. You actually don't feel significant, worthy, whole, loved as a human being. We all have that. That's just a human condition. So those holes, we all call them, you know, the hole in the heart or whatever, we all have that. And then when we get into relationships, we try and fill those holes off our partners, and that's where the dysfunction starts, because you cannot fill another person's void. You just cannot do that. You have to do it. So we're super passionate about helping
Amazing.
individuals, because we know it's individuals that make a relationship, and it's a dynamic. It's never one person, it's a dynamic. So two individuals create a relationship. So yeah.
And it starts with you. You're so right, isn't it? It starts with the individual. That is so amazing. It's just a wonderful that you've learned and then come and you're using what you've learned together to help others. It's absolutely fantastic. So I was going to ask you really about a time that you experienced fear which prevented you from doing something that you wanted to do, or something that you knew you needed to do. So you've sort of started answering it a little bit, that question.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share with regard to that? Is there something specific that you thought, yeah, that's stopping me and I really need to do this? Obviously, the one that you've discussed is huge, and it's taken you where you are. And I think the work you're doing is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think for me, fear showed up, if I'm really brutally honest, in every area of my life, whether it was at work, and even as we go forward and into a business, the fears show up all the time. So we were talking just before the event that the fear for me to even have to do a video, and I would feel uncomfortable to show myself, to expose myself, you know, in my personal life and my private life, and even Facebook I was afraid of. I didn't like to post on Facebook. And so to be honest, I think, and this relates to my anxious attachment style. So I have a bit of an anxious attachment style. So fear for me has been very prevalent, and in fact has run my entire life. So there's been so many specifics, but when it comes to relationship, I think I felt it the strongest. And there was, we had specific issues in our relationship where I would feel like I just couldn't speak, and I just would shut, you know, basically zip my lips and just not go there. And that we had an issue that at the beginning of very early on in our relationship, I married Justin.
We've been together 17 years now.
Oh.
I married my darling husband, knowing this issue was in our life and knowing we couldn't speak about it. We did try to get some help, and we have worked on it and chipped away at lots of different ways, and yet it plagued us until the point where we just avoided it. And
that's my attachment is avoidance. So I can't stand people being angry at me or upsetting or disappointing people. So I just avoid everything in the fear that I'm going to upset someone. But in the process of doing that, I upset people, you know, and myself. Yeah. So intimacy for me has been my biggest fear by far. And, you know, that's probably most people's, if people are brutally honest with themselves. It's being seen for who you are, just for who you are. You know, and you have to run the risk of rejection, you know, feeling uncomfortable emotions, or somebody not resonating with you, or, you know, if you're a highly sensitive person or an empath or whatever you want to call yourself, you feel a lot. That's excruciating. It feels very uncomfortable, you know, until you learn the skills and practice and build up that resilience.
And it's like Maria said, you know, it can take over your life. I've certainly experienced that too, because I think it's human nature for us to want people to like us. And there's levels of how you've learned to deal with the fact that you're going to have to accept rejection in your life, and you won't be able to please everybody, you know, and it's about learning how to handle that fear of knowing that, you know, rather than avoid it. I love what you've said and shared with us. Thank you so much. So you've obviously taken action to overcome these fears.
We're still taking action. That's just a constant.
Yeah.
We're very much on the journey.
Yeah.
You know, we'll be on it till we
and
check
that's
out.
really that's really the essence of this. The whole idea of this podcast is realizing that we're all on a journey, and that everyone experiences the same emotions, the same difficulties, and fear is something that we all have to experience. And it's how we deal with it, and it's how we handle it, and how we look at it that's important. And so as well, it's the things that we find that are successful to help us to cope with it, and the strategies. And you've obviously found a lot of those and put them into your coaching program. Is there
Yeah.
any that you think that you could share with our audience that would, if there's somebody out there that is thinking, my fear is stopping me from doing this, and in consequence, like you were saying, Justin, the consequence of not doing it is, you know, you end up maybe doing something wrong or hurting someone, you know, or whatever, you might hurt yourself by not doing what you need to do. Is there any?
I nearly lost my family.
Exactly.
I nearly lost my
Yeah.
wife
So sad.
because
Yeah.
I wasn't willing to.
I guess it was we.
Yeah, I'm
both.
taking responsibility for me that because of my.
But you
This is
grabbed it and
where
you
it
did it,
gets.
Justin. You grabbed it,
Yeah.
and that's what we want everybody to realize, that, you know, they can do it. And so
Yeah,
just like you
but we
guys.
understand how powerful that drive in the body to protect yourself is, because even though I knew and I could see this crumbling in front of me, I was still just paralyzed to do anything about it. And then 10 years into our marriage, Maria called me. I was away from work and said, I still can't say it, but she said, I can't do this anymore. You know, and that we all reach that point where, you know, your emotions, you just can't hold it down any longer. And I had to step up and I had to say, I don't know what's coming and I'm scared shitless and I'm terrified. I'm terrified to do what I need to do because I don't know what I want to find, but I'm also terrified to lose Maria and the kids. But, you know, at some point you do have to turn the corner and just take the leap of faith. You have to jump off the cliff and give it a go.
And for me at that time, I just knew in my heart of hearts, and I said to Justin on that call, the only thing we can do wrong is nothing. And so at some point you get to a point
I'm lucky
in your
I have
life,
a super strong woman.
and it's, at some point we often, you know, will eventually, these patterns will repeat in our life. And that's our first tip, is that when you're looking, when you're getting repeated patterns in your life, or you'll see the same pattern. So for example, if you're in a relationship and it all goes pear-shaped or you keep attracting the same type of person, there'll be fear below that. It's a journey to get to it, and there's another couple of strategies we'll talk about. But if there's a pattern, you're afraid of something and you're behaving in a certain set of ways that keeps attracting that same thing back to you. So any pattern in your life, you can start to investigate, and below that will be a protective measure of behavior, basically. That's now you've come to a point in your life where it's not working for you and your soul is sitting there screaming at you, in fact, I'm going to keep lining up these situations for you until you learn this lesson. So there's something for us to learn. And that's another little strategy, is that fear, we can reframe it in our mind and say to ourselves, I know I'm afraid, but I can learn here, and we can calm that nervous system down. And you can use mantras and things like that. I had a whole heap that I liked. I'll pass it to you in a second. But yeah, you know, it's those repetitive patterns can be a real pointer. And then when you see them saying, okay, I've got a little bit of work here to do, that's all, you know, and I'm okay, I'm safe, and I can do this.
Yeah.
You go on now.
Yeah. Or you started to mention the nervous system, or all of that. It's very much.
That's the start, really. Yeah.
So the start of it is getting educated about who you really are. Like we think we know who we are as a human being, but we're so much more than that. So it's the first step for us was, you know, we got coaches. You can't solve the problem you've got with your own mind. It's your mind that created the problem. You need to inject something new in there, a new perspective, a new vision, a new insight to change your view, to change your perspective. So we got coaches, and we've spent thousands and thousands of dollars in the last 4 years on coaching because we're passionate about it. But it's getting educated about who you are, how the mind works, and how the nervous system works, and how the nervous system and the mind work together to create these feelings and emotions. And it's about understanding what's going on in here. You've got this body doing all this stuff, but we're never educated on what's actually going on. What do your emotions mean? You know, how do we read them? How do we work with them? All of that stuff. So it's getting education and then learning the tools. The education is the first step, and then learning the tools so that you know what's going on. Then in the moment when it happens, when you start to feel anxious or your throat tighten up or the heart racing or the fear starting to activate in your nervous system, it's then learning the skills and tools to calm. You've actually gone into a different part of your brain. You've gone into the fight, flight, freeze part of the brain, and you can no longer think rationally. You just want to get the hell out of there, shut it down, freeze, whatever. So it's in that moment is now the rubber meets the road, and you have to do the practices to calm down. That's meditation, breath work, movement, like Maria teaches, whatever. And we all have different things. You just got to try them, because what works for me might not work for you. You just have to be open to try it, but bring the nervous system down and get back into that prefrontal cortex, the thinking rational part of the brain, where you can now have choice. Now you're conscious. Now you know, okay, I have fear, I've been triggered, I want to go that way out of my tendency, but I'm actually going to choose to go this way now. And that's going to feel very uncomfortable, and that's where people bail out and go back to their, distraction or thinking about it more. Somehow if I think about it more, it'll go away. Or
yeah, I think that important word you used then, Justin, was choose. People are making a choice to go that way towards the fear. I mean, with your specific circumstances, you're talking about, you felt like you had no choice, and that was the only choice in a way, because you wanted to save what you were worried you would lose. And I know that certainly it's very hard sometimes to make that choice when you don't necessarily feel that you have to do it, but you just want to do it. And you know that by doing it could push you further, or could help you to, reach for the stars, or make your dreams come true, or start a business, or leave that job that you're scared of leaving the security, or so many things. And I think that that's the important word you said was choose.
I think that it takes, you could take the biggest thing in your life, like for Maria and I, it's taken us now 4 years of every single day to consciously work on some pretty big fears and traumas that we've had. But if we went straight for the jugular of those traumas now that we've faced 4 years ago, your nervous system it's just too much for your nervous system. So what we tell people in our programs and educating people is pick something. So I'll put a post up this week on my Facebook page where we both stopped having coffee for the month of March. And it's not because we don't like coffee or coffee's bad or whatever, but we've had coffee just about every single day of our relationship. And what that practice does is it's teaching you that when the body has an automatic way of operating, which is all fear is, it's an automatic response. It's just an automatic response that's unconscious to you. But when we practice those things like not having coffee, or it's a controlled environment, we know we're doing it. I know at this point in the morning when I get up to have my coffee, my body's going to say, hey, where's my coffee? Now I can consciously sit there and feel uncomfortable, feel my body wigging out a bit or screaming at me for where's my coffee, but it's a controlled environment. You can handle that. You can condition your nervous system and your mind that you're in control. You have control. So that when you do face these bigger traumas and things, you've practiced, you don't just go put your shoes on and go for a 40K marathon after sitting on the couch for 40 years. You have to work your way up to it. So
it really is it's a practice, and it's learning tools and then starting to practice. And believe me, I fell on my face many times, and you make mistakes, and then you kind of whack yourself, and then you've got to get up and do it again and again and again. And I think what you were speaking about, Lisa, is that desire. We have a natural desire to expand as humans. We want to learn, we want to grow. We just can't. We've been doing it since the moment of our inception. We looked at the world and went, wow. And why did a baby start walking and talking? And the baby just knows to expand. And then as it leaves its mum, it starts to get further and further from mum. And then, they, as mothers would know, the baby says, okay, you know, that was nice for that attachment for a while, and now I'm ready to go out into the world on my own. And we do that right throughout our lives. And where we hit against that uncertainty and that uncomfortableness, we're really rubbing on to the edge of our comfort zone. And sometimes what happens over time, if we can't push that comfort zone out, or we can't cross the threshold of our comfort zone over time decreases, and it will get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's really, I mean, it's a marvel of the universe in many ways, because as it gets more and more uncomfortable, because we're just
constricted.
Yeah, we become constricted, and the call to expand becomes stronger, but we get more and more uncomfortable. So that's really is, I mean, anytime we move outside our comfort zone is facing our fears and trying new behaviors and doing different things, and that's a wonderful way. And like Justin says, we can do it in small ways and just build the muscle that we can handle a bit of discomfort. You know, me hopping on and doing those few videos, I just moved through it. Yes, there was discomfort, and I would have the angst and a bit of anxiety, and then calm myself down, do whatever preparation I needed to, and then do that video. Don't let it get the better of me, just do the video. So that takes a lot of practice, and we have been practicing a while.
Yeah,
there
were times when it was we'd have to go back and forward, and Maria would freak out, and I'd get upset and just shut the computer down and walk out. And you know, and it takes time to.
And you couldn't personalize it.
No.
Here we are working together. I used to get a lot of anxiety going to a social event, you know, and I would start to become a bit cross about strange things, and like the food we were taking, and sometimes, you know, Justin would be like, "Come on, I'm ready to party," and I'm like, you know, and I'm actually fearful of. I had social anxiety, to be honest, and it didn't stop me. These the smaller things didn't stop me, but you know, it would create a bit of issue.
I have to tell you, I just have to tell you a quick story because it amuses me, so I'm going to tell you anyway. But we went to this party, like this was years ago when Maria's tackled a lot of that stuff now, but back in our early days, she had social anxiety, and we're going out one day, and Maria was having a shower, and we were taking a potato salad, and I was cutting up the spring onions to put in the potato salad.
So you might call them shallots somewhere else, like those long onions. Yeah.
So I was cutting them up, and you know, who knows, they were
so
a few meals. Well, as fine as I could get them, but this is how it plays out, because I didn't know, Maria, that the extent of that, wound or trauma or whatever for Maria, I didn't understand that. All I got was Maria came out, and we were due to go out to this party, and she's getting really angry at me that the spring onions weren't cut fine enough, and they were going to ruin the salad. So I was getting. And
then I felt like I couldn't go, because my brain was looking for any excuse to hold me back, you know. So the mind is trying to keep me safe. And so when I was young, you know, so for me, this comes, I mean, the wound behind it is me not feeling good enough. And it's not that the spring onions have to be good enough at all. It was me. Like I'm nervous because I'm going to a party. There's lots of people there that I don't know. And I'm worried about being there and not saying the right thing or whatever, not fitting in or not having a nice time and feeling it, I don't know. But the wound behind it, of course, is much deeper, and the healing work that goes in behind it. But it would come out as anger. I'd say, those spring onions aren't fine enough, and you've ruined the salad, and I don't think I can go. You know,
I just think she's being a pain in the ass and doesn't want to go to this party that I'm itching to go to.
And as you said, Lisa, deep down, I wanted to go. I wanted to go. My soul, my inner being's like, let's party. I want to go. But it's just behavior and a fear. And it comes out in this, and that's how complex it can be. It comes out in me commenting on the spring onions.
It's so interesting to listen to the story, because, you know, I can relate to everything that you're saying. I've had such similar experiences in my life, and I also suffered from social anxiety. I would even say that I don't think it's something that I've completely overcome. I don't know if you perhaps ever get to that point where you're that happy with yourself and comfortable in situations, but I'm certainly doing the work, and that's the main thing. But what I find so interesting about that experience you had as well is that you've made it clear that you don't know what it is. When you've got social anxiety, you don't even know it's social anxiety. So your partner, they're not going to be able to relate to it, and you don't know what it's called or what it means. You just feel emotions, and it comes out in that way. And I think this is what's great about learning from people like you when you need the help is then you get to the root of the problem, and you can have aha moments, and you can think, right, now I know this, I can move forward. And that's what's so great about the work you do.
You touched on something so powerful, Lisa, because through learning and that education process, you learn a language and then you can communicate it to your partner. We didn't even have the words to describe the emotions, let
especially
alone
a guy. Hello.
And let alone the processes, or what really low, the processes to go, outside the moment. So we always talk about inside and outside the moment. When you're in the heat of it, it's not often the best time, but later on to go, okay, what happened there, and I would do that work inside myself, which we'll touch on in a minute. But the language to explain, I actually really wanted to go to that party. I'm just feeling nervous, and this nervous, I'm not sure where it's coming from, but it's coming out at you. I apologize, but I think I need, and you can even ask for help in that moment. And then Justin would have been there in a heartbeat, but I didn't have the ability to do that. I just projected it onto him.
You end up repelling each other, and then and that's where the fear comes. Now it starts to trigger all of those original childhood abandonment fears, and as a scared, now you're just two scared little children. You've been abandoned internally, you feel like, and now you're going into protection. That's when the real headbutting and fighting starts, because now you just get away because you're hurting me. That's how we perceive it. That's not actually true, but that's how we perceive it.
Yeah. And over time, this is what erodes so many relationships.
And you get more and more fearful. It becomes more and more triggering. And like Maria was saying before, if you don't face the fear, and this is no one's fault, there's absolutely no fault, because all of this is unconscious. 95% of who we are is just like a computer program. You just operate like from 0 to 7, you are just downloaded with a program from your environment, from your parents, your society, everything. Culture. Whatever you've experienced in the first 7 years of your life, you have zero questioning ability. It just goes in and it's all about you. What does all of this mean about me? That's how you create your operating system for life. And a lot of people are not aware of it, that's what's happened, and they are just going through their life doing their thing, and it's not working out for them, and they just think this is just who I am. Well, it's not. That's just who you've been programmed to be. So,
and Lisa, you can and absolutely will overcome social anxiety. I promise you can do it. It can be healed. Yeah.
Well, it's like you've both said. I mean, what you did is you reached out for help. When you got to that point where you knew something needed to change, you did exactly what you should have done. And I'd like to know, well, I think you've shared with everybody actually what the transformation is possible when you reach out and say, I need help with this, or we need to understand what's going on. What can you share with everybody, the change, and when was that moment when you first got into learning about how you could change this, when you thought, yeah, I can really do this? What was it about? Does that make sense? There's two questions in one, but I'm so excited about what you've been talking about. I just want to know.
They're really great questions, and I'll answer from my perspective and then let Justin go. When we first, I'm sorry, I'm skipping over my words, but at the very beginning, I don't know what happened, but at some point I said to myself, I know I need to do meditation. And that's all I knew in this whole thing. And I went and started doing meditation, and something that landed on me on one of my first nights of this meditation course. And we were talking about that you are not your body, you are not your mind, you are not your thoughts, you're not your feelings. And I just went, oh my gosh, I just felt this weight lift off my shoulder. It's not me. This stuff is a part of who I am and my humanity. And so I already knew in that moment, I knew, something just broke open inside myself. And I knew in that moment that this was the path for me. And I just thought, okay, it's such a relief. Like I'm not crazy, but to be honest, in many ways, it's been a journey of dips and ebbs and flow and contraction and expansion. And sometimes I've felt like I couldn't get there. I had to work through so much sorrow and grief. And I thought, how many more tears can I possibly cry at times? So the healing journey, when you commit to it, though, there's one thing that you just can't well, look, you could possibly stop, but once you know and you feel you just know so much more, and you just keep going. Consciousness is just expanding through you. But I honestly, recently, it's actually been quite recently for me when I finally, and it happened actually only last December, when I finally, something in me cracked a whole nother level, and I went, I just realized myself. I realized who I truly was, and it's been liberating and freeing, and it's absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. As I've just realized, it's me. This is me. My whole life experience is me experiencing me. Every moment of my life is me working on me. And it sounds sort of selfish and self-centered, but
everything else is just a mirror for that.
Yeah, and every situation I'm in is me working on me. That's all my whole life is. And I've stopped the people pleasing. So I was pleasing Justin, and I was constantly putting my energy outside myself, my children, to reflect back to me my worth. And it's just been this amazing crack open. It's not necessary. So for me, the transformation, I think, has been just so liberating and freeing. And now I feel I won't crap on too much, but it's just this beautiful feeling. No matter what happens, there's this knowing that I'm actually love. That is who I am, and that is my purpose. It's just amazing. So I found my purpose through it. I honestly found my purpose in life, which is simply to love. It's the most simple, beautiful purpose for me. Everyone's different, but for me, that's all it is.
I think when you really get that concept, like Maria said, you're not your mind, you're not your body, you're not your emotions, you're not your feelings. You are simply the one who notices it. And then when you drop below that even more and go, well, who is that? You're not physical. And this is when you get into spirituality. You're not actually, the essence of who you are is not physical. You're just conscious. You're just a conscious energy.
An awareness.
I heard that. I get it off. I know it now. Like before, you can hear it now. And if you haven't experienced it, it's just in your mind. That's fine. But I heard this after Maria had her kind of epiphany and said, look, I need to go my own way, and gave me the phone call and said, I don't know what's happening, but, Maria has to go on her journey. And that was, I had to find answers, and I started looking for answers, and I stumbled across a YouTube video where the guy said that you're not your mind, you're not your body. And he explained all this.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy shit, I've never entertained that idea. No one's ever said it. And I didn't experience it then, but it went into my mind, and it was enough to stay there and lodge there. And then a couple of days later, it was probably 2 or 3 days later, I was still makes me giggle now, but I was working in the field and I felt it. My mind just blew open, and I felt one with the universe. I don't know. You have to experience. You can only experience it. There's no words for it. But that's the start. Like, that sounds wonderful, but that's the start. And then I realized I'm trapped in this body with these thoughts and emotions and this patterning, and I'm here, but there's also all this other stuff running. And that's when the work starts. That's why you need a coach, because it's scary, it's confusing, you don't really know what's going on. You can very quickly learn and understand and get the concepts, and then you're right, then you can go off on your own. But initially it was very, well, for me, it was very scary. I had some other, spiritual things happen, energetic things happen to me, which were incredibly scary. But at the same time, incredibly joyful, because I knew I wasn't who I thought I was. I knew I was free. I was in that moment that my mind blew open. I knew I'm free. And that's when I knew, okay, I am free, but I have to do the work to change this body, to change this computer program, to change this, however I operate and think and act in the world is unconsciously operating automatically, and I have to be the one to change that. And that's a process and a journey, and it's taken us, a bit over 4 years to get to where I am now. And I know like Maria was saying, it's a constant expansion. There's no end, which is really exciting because you never get bored in life now. Before that, there was boredom as you're just stuck in these patterns. But now it's like, I don't know, I'll be here for another 40, 50 years in this body, maybe, who knows, but you're never going to get it done. There is just so much to learn and know and interact with other people. And
but the transformation already is just phenomenal. I mean, what I've just taken from what you've both said is it's so inspiring. You know, when you said sounds a bit selfish, I'm like, no, it sounds inspirational, you know, because it all starts with us. And we started with that earlier in our conversation. It starts with you and it ends with you. And that's what you were saying. And Justin, I have to tell you, I had the same reaction when you said that quote. I wanted to stop you and say, I need to write this down. When you said that quote you saw on that YouTube, I had shivers and I thought, I've got to write that down because that's so good. Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful message. And it's, you know, interestingly, Justin and I heard it in 2 different places, and it was the message that landed for the 2 of us. And it was a real, oh my goodness moment where you just like, you used to have a sense of freedom and relief, like, oh, okay, you know, and I don't have to believe every thought. And these emotions are guiding me, and they're showing me something I need to work on. And you start to build a great deal of compassion for yourself, because we're so hard on ourselves if we don't know these things and if we don't have the tools.
You understand the body's wounded, you're not wounded. And again, from an essence or spiritual place, you're just laughing, you're loving this whole experience, but your body has a few knocks and dings in it from life that you need to just panel beat out and give it a respray and you'll be fine. But you know, the actual journey itself,
I can't thank you enough for sharing that with us, because it truly is an absolute inspiration. And I'm sure there's plenty of people listening that are really grateful to hear your message today, and to know that that they can go and do it too. Because you're saying when you start, it impacts you and you think, wow, yeah, that sounds great. I'd like to feel that. But by going through the journey, you then experience the transformation and you get there. And it's a great message to leave everybody with, that you can do it, that we can all do it. And you have to choose to do it.
Yes, you have to choose to do it. Yeah, you absolutely have to choose. Yeah. And once you're on the path, you know, it will unravel in ways that you won't even, you know, we have no idea. Our mind can't actually comprehend.
You're so much bigger than your mind that you actually cannot conceptualize. You just have to walk in blind faith. But
that's hard. That's facing fear.
It's hard initially, but when you know who you are, it gets easier. You actually now love the surprise. It's I don't know what's coming, but I'm going to love it anyway. It's going to be great. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? I could chat to you for hours. But it's been wonderful you joining us today at the G.S.T podcast. And I would love if you could come back another time and tell us more, because I've so loved chatting to you this morning. And I certainly hope everyone listening has enjoyed it as much as me. Thank you so much, Maria and Justin.
It's been an honor, Lisa. We really appreciate the opportunity, and and it's been wonderful chatting to you. So
you're an inspiration.
Very humbled to be the first one. So
yes, the premiere, the premiere episode. Yeah, so thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody who tuned in, and anybody who wants to watch the replay or is watching the replay, please put #replay in the comments and share with us. Have you found this as inspiring as me? Have you taken something away that you can roll with and can help you in your life? Because I know I've got a pocket full of them. So thank you so much.
No worries, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll just say bye-bye to everybody, and we'll catch you next week on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Thank you so much, Justin and Maria. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.